It started actually when Guillermo saw my short film that I had done. He was familiar with my comic book work, and he's always had a public email address. And so when I first started working on my short, I sent him a couple of stills from it, and he responded back right away, and it was very encouraging, which is nice. And took a while, took about 5 years to finish the short. A lot of effect shots in it. And through a friend, Nick Nunziata, who's actually a producer on the movie, he ripped the short, put it up on an FTP site. Guillermo was in prep on Hellboy 2, and he basically forced Guillermo to watch it. And from there, I got an email back saying he really liked the short, that Nick phoned right away, said he wants to talk to you. So he gave me his phone number. Here, you got to keep in mind that Guillermo is like one of my directing idols, so all of this is pretty fantastic and amazing what's going on. And he said he really enjoyed the short. He had a script that he co-wrote with Matthew Robbins, and he wondered if I would be interested in directing it. So that was kind of a bit of a no-brainer. And in terms of coming from comic books to movies that you're talking about, yeah, I mean, it's you are creating in a complete vacuum when you're doing comics, especially if you're writing. It's just you. You're writing, you're working on a page. And so to be able then to essentially rip out those images from the page in your mind and put them into a movie is, I don't know. I mean, it's funny because I don't want to say that it just came naturally. I mean, it's making movies hard. But because of the people that are involved, like I say, like the production designer and my DP was so wonderful. It just sort of was a natural thing. It came out, and it's just working. Obviously, having done a short, which I think is really ripped from the kind of imagery that I created. It's the storytelling is there. I mean, I've always been a storyteller. I love movies, and I got into comics because movies wasn't really an option at the time when I graduated. So there was always the love of film first before comics, and so when the opportunity arose to do that, I honestly feel like I'm much more comfortable in movies than I was in comics. If that makes sense. The outside world was all cool colors. So anytime you see anyone in the outside world that wasn't Katie or Bailey, they're wearing blues and grays and purples. So you watch every extra. I'd stand there and know if they're wearing green, they're out. And so that all comes. That all comes from years of working in comics and design and being able to translate that to movies.
Well, I was a big fan of the comic books already. Jennifin was the first time I saw his work, and I lost it after an original piece of art he had. It was Jennifin in the bed with the tentacles spilling over the blanket.
It's in his house.
Which is in my house now. I wanted very much to know that guy, know the guy the same way that I wanted to know Mike Mignola, for example. And we met, we had a good first encounter, and then he emailed me some JPEGs of his short. And I wrote him back an extensive email saying how great it looked, blah, 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 and encouraging him to finish it. And then Nick Nunziata, when he heard we were doing Don't Be Afraid, he said, I'm going to send you that short. And I remembered how great those images were. And then I saw it, and it was entirely, a sensibility was there already of a person with a world view. And it was very skillfully directed. So, I really think one of the duties, if you can do it as a producer, is to produce first-time filmmakers. Because I much rather see somebody bring something new to a genre than producing something that seems safe. So I think Troy had a new and fresh view. We actually did not tamper with it after that. I think that there was one shot which is a gash in a hand that I wanted some tendons to show. And we had, I think we agreed to tame it down. Yeah. And then we just called the effects house and said, bring the tendons back. But other than that, I don't think we did anything.
No, not really. I mean, we let the movie, I would say that the movie will tell you what it needs to be. And I think that we worked that way, was that the movie just became the movie.
Except contractually, we were PG-13. So we were in deep poop.
but everyone was really supportive of that cut. Everyone said, no, you don't want to mess with the movie. And so yeah, there wasn't beyond that one effect shot. There wasn't any adding or subtracting.
But funny enough, Troy may see it like it's normal, but it's completely abnormal that this happens. You know? You have a PG-13 movie contractually with a studio, and then the time comes and you get a hard R, and they tell you you cannot change anything because it's pervasive scariness, which is like talking about morbid obesity in a candy store, I guess. It's completely impossible to solve. And then the studio supported us. They said, leave it as an R. I mean, that's like a jaw-dropping moment for me because I know. But it was beautiful to get that. It was like a badge of honor. Thank you. You know, it depends. It depends on the project. Some projects, the hardest thing to do, without a doubt, is to write. Without a doubt, the hardest job is to fill that blank page. That's the first step. That's the blueprint. That's the music on the paper, you know. And then I think that the most beautiful part of the process for me is editing, because all the bullshit is gone. You know, you had one movie in your head. You put it on page, you had another movie in your head as director. Now all you have is the movie that is left, you know, against budget, against an actor that never shows up, against a studio that is pressuring you. But finally you started thinking, I'm going to build a mansion with 100 rooms and 100 windows, and then you end up and you have 5 rooms, 5 windows, and a bunch of bricks. And that's the editing. The reality is there, and you build what you want. And that's the most joyful process. Producing is great, because frankly, you learn. I think that Troy did choices in the movie that would be completely against my instinct and that were entirely different than what I would do, and they worked. And they were teaching me the same way that Juan Antonio Bayona in The Orphanage, he made his own proposal of what a horror movie was. And I would have never thought it would work. And now I just produced a movie in Spain called Los Ojos de Julia, Julia's Eyes. And Guillermo Morales, the director, again came back, and I was like, but why? Why this way? Why that way? And then I see the movie and I go, that's why. And I'm learning. You learn a lot as producer.
Yeah, I think it's such a classic movie in terms of sort of that inspiration from the 70s that...
Oh, yes.
That no, I mean, there wasn't any pressure at all that we felt on our end to do a post 3D version of it all.
No, we did an investigation of 3D because the studio did ask how much would it cost to be 3D.
Yeah.
But look, this movie was done for a fraction of the cost. This was done because we wanted to preserve the ending we wanted. We wanted to preserve the hardcore stuff we wanted. And if we went over budget or we went too big, we were going to start losing those freedoms. So it's a low-budget movie for the size of production it is. And when the studio heard the number that it would require to shoot it on 3D, they said, keep it on 2D. It was, mind you, it's a combination of very fortunate economic timing and artistic integrity. Now, 3D, I love it. I want to do it. I was not in favor of it in The Hobbit, personally, because at that time I thought, it needed to be completely cohesive with the trilogy. But that's the only property in which I was not inclined to explore it. You know, I think the way I do compositions, the way I do dynamics in the frame, is perfectly suited for 3D. I want to do it, and the next movie I do will be 3D.
Oh.
Yeah. Want to start?
It's funny because I was asked that earlier. What scares me?
By a woman.
I think that what scares me scares everyone. I mean, it's just uncertainty of not knowing. And I think that kind of works in terms of what this movie is this little girl in this horrible situation not knowing what's going to happen to her. She has nowhere to turn, no one that'll listen to her, and it just keeps getting worse and worse and worse. And I think that's something that we can all relate to. You know, not being backed into a corner and not knowing where you're going to go.
Yeah, I think the essence of fear, there are only two on buttons for fear, and only two, in any permutation you want. One is when something that shouldn't be is, meaning a presence. And the other one is an absence, It can work with someone walking into an empty corridor and something that should be there is not, or something that shouldn't be there is. That's it. I mean, that's essentially the fact that I can show you a scene of a woman in a bedroom and a man walks in, a 70-year-old man walks in. It's without context, it's not scary. But if that is her dead father, it's scary. So the second thing about what fear is those two switches in context. So without context, like humor, horror doesn't work. Now what scares me, frankly, in real life, politicians, corporations, people that think they know what the world should be. That people with certainty scare the shit out of me. People that say this is the way it should be, I go, holy fuck. Those things scare me. And supernatural things, I have heard ghosts. I've never seen ghosts. The last ghost that you did, yeah, you can tell them that. But the last ghost I heard was in New Zealand. We were scouting for The Hobbit, and we went into a haunted room in a hotel that was famous for having a haunted room. And of course, I asked for the haunted room. And I told everyone in the party, I said, don't come fucking with me at midnight knocking on the, please. No. Peter saw it in his old apartment in front of the Opera House. And he saw a very famous apparition that is called the Screaming Woman. That is different. But I went into this is near Waitomo. And I took the room, and about midnight or 1 a.m., I started hearing a guy screaming. And I went, and it was coming from a window in the bathroom. I opened the window, and there's nothing but a narrow alley there. And I go, oh, well, fuck. And I go back to the bed, and I start hearing a woman sobbing and howling. And I go back, and it comes from the same place. And the rest of the night, I watched episodes of The Unit. I was so fucking scared. I needed some real men around me.
Honestly, I mean, he's a huge influence on me. But I think that at the same time, that the things that influence both of us are very similar as well. So you watch my short, and I think you could see some of Del Toro in it as well. And it's just, I think it's just a similar like of things, a similar desire of things, and things that